Before we begin, I just want to say something from the heart. If you're here, thank you, truly. In a world that feels loud, rushed, and sometimes overwhelming, the fact that you chose to spend even a few minutes here means more than you know. So if you've been having a hard day, if your heart feels heavy, or if you simply came here looking for a little escape, take a deep breath with me. You are welcome here. You are appreciated here. And for the next little while, let's step into this wild, dramatic, messy, unbelievable celebrity world together. Because today, we need to talk. Not about one story, not about two stories, but about a whole storm of headlines, whispers, relationships, family drama, court chaos, internet cruelty, and the strange way fame seems to turn private pain into public entertainment. And trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to have a lot to say. So grab your drink, get comfortable, and let's get into this. There are some weeks in pop culture where everything feels normal. And then there are weeks like this one. The kind where every time you refresh your phone, another headline pops up that sounds so unbelievable it almost feels made up. 1 minute it's romance, the next minute it's family tension. Then suddenly it turns dark, emotional, and deeply uncomfortable. And somehow, all of it ends up in the same conversation. That is exactly where we are today. Let's start with a story that feels like the beginning of a glossy movie, but also the setup for a disaster waiting to happen. Kim Kardashian and Lewis Hamilton. Now on paper, this pairing sounds like the kind of celebrity crossover the internet would go crazy for. She is one of the most talked about women in the world. He is one of the most famous athletes on the planet. Together, that is instant headline material, instant paparazzi attention, instant online chaos. But here, where things get interesting. When two mega-famous people start spending more time together, people don't just watch. They analyze. They inspect every outfit, every public sighting, every body language clue, every quiet moment in the background of a grainy video. And that's exactly what seems to be happening here. Because once people started seeing signs that things might be serious, the conversation moved quickly from "are they dating?" to "where is this going?" And that's when the marriage talk started creeping in. Now, whether those whispers are real, exaggerated, or completely overblown, one thing about celebrity culture never changes. People love to imagine the next step before the current step is even confirmed. But relationships at that level don't just involve two people. They involve brands. They involve families. They involve public image. And most importantly, they involve approval. Because no matter how rich, famous, powerful, or glamorous someone becomes, family opinions still matter, maybe more than people admit. And that brings us to the part of the story that always changes everything: the mother. Because when a mother looks at her child's relationship and quietly thinks, "I'm not sure this is right," that opinion can carry enormous weight, especially when the bond is close, especially when trust runs deep, especially when that child values family over noise. And honestly, that is what makes these stories so fascinating. Behind the designer outfits and luxury trips, there's still something deeply human hiding underneath it all. The need to be chosen, the need to be accepted, the hope that love will be enough to win people over. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it is. Now, while one story feels like it's balancing on elegance, ambition, and family approval, another one feels like it's running on quiet strategy. Let's talk about Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet. This pairing has always confused some people and fascinated others. On the surface, they seem like they come from completely different worlds. One is tied to beauty empires, social media power, and one of the most famous families in modern entertainment. The other is tied to film, prestige, artistry, and a world that likes to think of itself as more private and serious. And yet somehow, the relationship has kept going. That alone tells you something. Because in celebrity life, many couples can pose for photos. Many couples can create buzz. Many couples can trend for a week, but staying together long enough for engagement rumors and future family conversations, that suggests something deeper is happening behind the scenes. And this is where the story becomes more layered. Because sometimes, what makes a relationship feel serious is not the flowers, not the red carpets, not even the vacations. Sometimes it's alignment, the quiet conversations, the what do you want your future to look like talks, the moments when fantasy turns into planning. And if two people are truly discussing marriage, children, and long-term life, that means this is no longer just a headline. It becomes a real-life choice with real-life consequences. But again, celebrity love is never simple. There's always another layer, another relative, another opinion, another silent judgment sitting just outside the frame. And that's what makes these stories so magnetic. It's never just about romance. It's about worlds colliding. It's about whether one life can fit inside another. It's about whether a person can love someone and still survive the spotlight that comes with them. Because let's be honest, dating someone famous is one thing. Dating into a family that is already treated like a global entertainment machine is something else entirely. And maybe that's why people can't stop watching. Not because they know the truth, but because they want to see whether love can actually survive pressure. Now let's shift the mood for a moment, because the next part of this conversation gets darker. Way darker. When a celebrity story stops being gossip and starts becoming a safety issue, the tone changes immediately. And that brings us to Rihanna. There is a huge difference between public fascination and dangerous obsession. One is unhealthy enough. The other can turn terrifying. When someone becomes convinced that they have a personal, emotional, or spiritual battle with a public figure they do not actually know, that is no longer celebrity drama. That is a warning sign, a serious one. And this part matters, so I want to say it clearly. Mental illness is not a joke. It is not a punchline. It is not something to laugh away, just because a story sounds bizarre from the outside. When someone shows repeated signs of instability, delusion, or obsession, the danger is real. For them, for the people around them, and for whoever becomes the target of that fixation. That is why stories like this feel so disturbing, because they remind us that fame does not protect people from fear. It does not protect them from being targeted. It does not make them invincible. Imagine being one of the most recognizable women in the world, and at the same time having to worry about whether someone out there has crossed the line from fantasy into violence. That's not glamorous. That's terrifying. And what makes it even more troubling is when the accused person appears to have had a normal, respectable professional life on paper. Because then people ask the same question every time. How did this get this far? How did no one stop it earlier? How did warning signs become danger? How does a person move from posting strange things to becoming the center of a criminal case? Those are the questions that stay with people. Because beneath the headline is something deeply sad, a life unraveling in public, and another life forced to protect itself from the fallout. And that's the ugly truth about celebrity life people don't talk about enough. People want access to stars. They want photos, stories, confessions, emotion. But sometimes that hunger turns into entitlement, and sometimes entitlement turns into obsession. That is not fandom. That is not admiration. That is danger wearing the mask of attention. Now from danger, we move into something else that the internet can be brutally careless about: cruelty. Let's talk about Barry Keoghan. One of the strangest things about internet culture is how quickly people forget that famous people are still people. The same crowd that praises someone one month can tear them apart the next month. The same face that trends as attractive on one timeline becomes the target of mockery on another. And somewhere in the middle of that, there is still a real human being reading the comments. That's the part many people ignore. When someone says public criticism has made them want to hide, not go out, not be seen, not feel comfortable in their own skin, that should make everyone pause. Because bullying does not become harmless just because it is typed into a comment section. It still lands. It still wounds. It still changes the way a person sees themselves. And honestly, this conversation is bigger than one actor. It's about the weird standards we have built online. We tell people to be unique, then punish them for looking different. We celebrate individuality, then reward conformity. We claim to care about mental health, then create environments that destroy it. That contradiction is everywhere. And if someone is struggling under the weight of public judgment, the answer should not be, well, that comes with fame. No, cruelty is still cruelty. Fame does not erase harm. Sometimes the internet acts like a giant schoolyard where millions of people point at one person and laugh, then pretend it doesn't matter because that person is rich, famous, or successful. But pain does not care about status. Humiliation does not check a bank account before it hurts. And shame does not become lighter just because strangers call it entertainment. So in a week full of headlines, I think this part deserves real attention, not just because one actor spoke up, but because it says something ugly about all of us and the culture we've created. Now let's step into a different kind of mess, because this next story feels like the kind of thing that makes families panic behind closed doors while the internet watches in disbelief. Beyoncé's extended family has found itself pulled into headlines, and not for the kind of reason anyone would want. Whenever there's a controversial relationship involving age gaps, chaotic public behavior, and a history of legal trouble, people react fast, sometimes too fast, but sometimes the alarm bells ring for a reason. And that's what makes this story feel so uncomfortable. It's not just that the situation looks messy from the outside. It's that the internet immediately starts asking harder questions. Questions about judgment, about safety, about influence, about whether the younger person really understands the world they are stepping into. Families know that feeling. That moment when someone you love starts moving in a direction that worries you, but you also know they are old enough to make their own choices. It is one of the most painful positions to be in. You want to protect them, but you can't fully control them. You want to warn them, but warnings often sound like attacks. You want to help, but help is not always welcome. And when that struggle plays out publicly, it becomes even worse. Because now it is no longer just a family issue. It becomes content, debate, commentary, memes. And maybe that is one of the saddest parts of all these celebrity stories. Private concern turns into public spectacle almost instantly. No time to process. No time to think. No time to fail quietly and learn. Everything becomes a performance, even the mess. Now, speaking of performances, we also need to talk about the comments from Usher regarding Diddy, because this is where celebrity loyalty collides with public morality. There are moments when silence says a lot, and there are moments when speaking says even more. When someone chooses to respond to a deeply controversial figure by focusing on personal experience while the world is thinking about allegations, victims, disturbing evidence, and public accountability, people are going to react strongly. That's inevitable. Because once a story becomes bigger than industry friendships, bigger than old ties, bigger than shared history, the public starts asking a simple question. Why are you saying this now? That's the question that hangs in the air. Not just what was said, but why it was said. And what it reveals. Celebrity culture often runs on loyalty networks. People protect each other, defend each other, distance themselves when necessary, reappear when useful. It's a dance, sometimes strategic, sometimes emotional, sometimes self-serving, sometimes all three. But when the public senses that someone is minimizing harm, rewriting history, or speaking with more compassion for power than for pain, trust begins to crack. And once trust cracks, every old headline gets dragged back into the light. Every rumor returns. Every old lawsuit, controversy, and whisper comes back with new force. That's what happens when celebrities speak on morally charged situations. They are never just addressing one issue. They are reopening their own relationship with the public. And audiences today are not passive. They listen closely. They notice wording. They notice what is acknowledged and what is skipped. They notice who gets empathy and who doesn't. That is why these moments matter so much. Not just because of the people involved, but because they show us what fame often protects, what it excuses, and what it still struggles to confront honestly. And when you place all of these stories side by side, a strange pattern appears. Love mixed with ambition, family mixed with pressure, fame mixed with loneliness, public glamour mixed with private fear, cruelty disguised as commentary, loyalty tangled up with denial. That is the real story here. Not just individual headlines, but the larger emotional truth hiding underneath them. Because behind every celebrity image is still a person trying to manage expectations, relationships, reputation, family, and survival under a microscope. Some are trying to protect love. Some are trying to win approval. Some are trying to stay safe. Some are trying to recover from public humiliation. Some are trying to defend people they probably should not defend. And some are simply learning, in the most public way possible, that fame magnifies everything. Every mistake, every romance, every opinion, every wound, even the ones people think they've hidden. And maybe that's why these stories pull us in so powerfully. Not because we are just nosy, though yes, sometimes people absolutely are, but also because celebrity stories often reflect ordinary human problems in exaggerated form. Who is accepted by the family? Who is moving too fast? Who is ignoring red flags? Who is being mistreated? Who is telling the truth? Who is protecting the wrong people? Who is hurting behind the smile? Those are not just celebrity questions. Those are human questions. We see them in fame because fame turns everything brighter, louder, and more dramatic. But the emotions underneath are familiar to almost everyone. And that is why a good story works. Because even when the people live in mansions, travel on private jets, and wear designer clothes, the emotional core still feels recognizable. Love, fear, shame, hope, pride, rejection, loneliness. That is the engine of every story worth telling. So after going through all of this, what are we left with? We're left with the reminder that not every glamorous headline is lighthearted. Not every public romance is stable. Not every statement deserves applause. Not every joke online is harmless. And not every famous person is as untouchable as they look. Sometimes the biggest lesson in celebrity news is not about them. It's about us. How we react. What we reward. What we excuse. What we mock. What we believe too quickly. And what we should probably hold with a little more care. Because yes, celebrity culture is entertaining. Yes, it is dramatic. Yes, it is wild. But it is also a mirror. And sometimes the reflection is not pretty. So now I want to hear from you. Which story shocked you the most? Do you think some celebrity relationships are built to survive family pressure? Or do outside opinions always win in the end? Do you think the internet has become far too cruel about appearances? And when celebrities speak up for controversial people, do you see that as loyalty, fear, denial, or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts below, because I already know this comment section is going to have a lot to say. And if you made it all the way to the end, thank you. Seriously, you being here supports this space more than you know. If you enjoy deep, emotional, story-driven celebrity commentary that goes beyond the headlines and gets into the why behind the chaos, then make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay close because there is always more to unpack. Until next time, protect your peace, trust your instincts, be kind with your words, and remember, not everything that shines is simple. See you in the next one.